Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of News on China, episode 11, Aggravated Harmony.
Ooh.
I was surprised what the title's going to be. It is kind of Aggravated Harmony when you think about it. We'll get into that in a second. I thought we needed a better title than last week. You know, last week we had new kids on the blockchain. And unfortunately, it was too old for a lot of people to get the reference. And for people who did get it, it just exposed how old we are. But I'll always remember New Kids on the Block, though, because
not Tings. She doesn't remember New Kids on the Block.
Oh, are you kidding me?
No.
I was just too busy watching Chinese soap operas instead.
No, you know, when I was a kid, my sister. She wrote New Kids on the Block on the wall of our house, and I got blamed for it. I got in trouble for it. And she's like, yeah, it was Daniel. And yeah. So I'll always remember that. I was so annoyed at that. And I was like, come on, like, Dad, Mom, if I'm a boy, a teenage boy, I think I was even younger than that, writing New Kids on the Block, like a boy band on the wall, you've got more important questions to ask me rather than just, about writing New Kids on the Block on the wall. But so I'll never forget them. But anyways, it's good to be back. How you guys doing?
Doing pretty well. Not as toasted as you are, but not as...
Oh yeah, I was really roasted. I was out on the beach for three nights, and hold on, I think I got a picture here of my setup here. Yeah, so on the beach on the RV, with a catamaran. Little private area of the beach. We had a bunch of friends there. We were barbecuing and stuff. And I got absolutely roasted. My nose is peeling and my glasses are gone. You see, my glasses are gone because basically it was a typhoon that just passed and there were these 2 meter, 3 meter waves. And I was like, no, I got to get my boat out there because I just had to get past the waves. And I capsized a few times. And one of those times I lost my glasses. My glasses dumped into the ocean. I lost my hat. We found the hat afterwards. It washed up on shore, but I was trying. I did manage to get past the waves once, and I didn't want to go out too far because it was pretty stupid. It was pretty dangerous, but I wanted to make sure I could come back in okay also. But coming back in, the waves were so big that it flipped me forwards, and I got dumped into the ocean again. I got all kinds of rope burns from getting wrapped up in the sails and stuff like that. It was pretty stupid, but it was fun. And then afterwards, what we decided, we're like, okay, now, you know what? We can't sail. So I took down the mast, I took down the sails, and we just used the bottom pontoons to push it out far enough, like 3 guys. And we were jumping on it and riding the waves as it was pushing us back in and seeing who could stay on or who got flipped off. So it was still really fun. Oh, it was good. You guys spent a little bit of time on the beach too, yeah?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it was not so much sun, right? This last weekend.
And also because there were some typhoon warnings as well, we weren't allowed to go into the water at all, and we stayed,
I think if I remember correctly, that's
taking people.
That's not me.
Well, actually, this is
go ahead.
No, it's just I was just making jokes that, I mean, in China, of course, there's a different standard for what is dangerous in the waves and the beach and what is not. So we were on the beach there. I was like, this is a normal beach in Rio, and they are like, just closed now. I mean, so if it was in Brazil, they would shut like half of the beaches then because, I mean, a lot of nice waves. Yeah. You could jump.
You can surf it.
Yeah, that was amazing, but I couldn't, enjoy.
Oh yeah, the waves were so much fun. They were good, but I think there wasn't anybody swimming. We did see some surfers down the beach a bit further, but I think maybe technically the rule was we weren't supposed to go in as well. But that's the difference between you and me. I mean, one side is law-abiding, risk-adverse, responsible adults, and then the other is me.
No glasses.
Yeah.
No glasses, me.
With no glasses. I've got another pair, exact same ones, my signature glasses on order, but it's going to take a few days. So now I'm just going to have to make do. You know what I did on the way back was I had prescription goggles, like swimming goggles. So I was wearing those while I was driving. So you can imagine the looks on the faces of the toll booth people with my goggles on.
Today?
I have contact lenses at home, so I've got contacts in now. Oh no, yeah. So, anyways, let's just jump right into this. So you got a couple stories for us, and the what was it called again? Instigated harmony. I already forget my own title, but whatever. Aggravated harmony. Yeah. Aggravated harmony. And that'll make a little bit more sense later on. So let's start with your 60-second video, which most people on my channel are already familiar with you. You have 60-second videos of news headlines that you release on your channel. And we're going to play that now and then get into a little bit more of the details. So let's start with that. Beautiful. Great video as usual. I don't think one of those stories is on our topic list today, but the Gaokao is really interesting, seeing how that plays out, how seriously they take it. You know, in our elevator here, they have signs in the elevator saying, please be quiet, everybody, don't make too much noise. There are kids studying for the Gaokao. There are police making sure nobody's like parked along the side of the schools making noises or honking noises and stuff. They're really making sure the kids are super focused. Like, this is a really serious thing.
It is. Yeah. Well, soon is your oldest one, right?
Oh yeah.
In a few years.
It's a bit of a different situation because he's in an international school, so we're still figuring out what to do if we want him to go to the Chinese universities. Do you see that? I was going to adjust my glasses. I'm so used to
phantom glasses.
Yeah, usually it's the 7-minute mark where I adjust my glasses. Yeah, no, it's very serious. But that's not the stories you wanted to go behind the headlines on. So what did you want to start with on your side?
Well, to be honest, I would love to talk about the high-tech greenhouses. It's an amazing story. And I mean, there's a lot of things, technology, and how much China, it's like biggest producer of cucumber and asparagus and many things. But, you know, US doesn't allow us to have some fun, especially in this show. So we have a few topics to cover. They worked a lot, actually, in the last 2 weeks. So, okay, let's talk about that.
All again. Right. In order for us to get into our aggravated harmony, to set some context is that 2 weeks ago, just under 2 weeks ago, we have a new executive order that Biden signed. So this time there were 59 Chinese companies on the list. So what were the companies? They're mostly state-owned enterprises. You know, this is nothing new. It's almost a continuation of what we've seen happening. The enterprises are mostly around, you know, military engineering. There's navigation, space, rockets, satellite technology. So a lot of high-tech companies with alleged links to military end uses.
Yeah, among them, of course, it's still Huawei, as we know. Huawei is there for like 2 years. SMIC, which is the biggest Chinese chips manufacturer. I mean, all the three major telecoms, China Unicom, China Mobile, China Telecom are there. There are a few cases that they removed. Actually, they removed 16 firms, including Xiaomi, that actually won this in a court in US also last week, and Sinochem, which is the biggest chemical company in the world. So, but they added 31 new ones. And as Tings says, that this allegedly ties with the military. I mean, some of them, of course, they are, because they are supposed to do that. But in the middle of that, there are companies like Xiaomi that, I mean, just got released, but there's still companies that claim that they have no ties with the military.
Yeah, you know what's really interesting about that too is that so much of American technology, the technology that's in the iPhones, the internet, satellite technology, all this stuff, it was developed by the military. That's where it starts.
Everything. Yeah. Facebook is a creation. I mean, Google, everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the only difference is what happens in the U.S. is the government develops these technologies, then they hand it over to private corporations to profit from. So all of the risk is put on the public. The public is actually funding these things. Then it gets handed over to giant corporations to profit from. So you don't have as much of that in China, but it's interesting to see the dynamics. And then when you're talking about all these new companies that are sanctioned, it's no surprise that these are industries or areas that the U.S. wants to catch up on as well, particularly with chips and things like that. And this isn't a new strategy from, imperialist kind of countries. When the British went in and took over India and basically deindustrialized them, they did the same kinds of things. Like they banned cotton products from India from being sent to England. And they even went as far as making it illegal to be a British person, somebody in England, wearing Indian cotton clothing. Like that's how much they wanted to try to, balance it. And then obviously they deindustrialized India or directed them to grow opium for their trade products and stuff like that, and basically destroyed a lot of the country that way. But it's the same thing over again. Solar panels, all of these things, they say, oh, we're banning it. The solar panel was on the basis of forced labor without any evidence. And then magically, these are industries that America wants to catch up on now. It all goes together.
Yeah. We're gonna come back to that at the end of the show.
Okay.
Exactly what your point.
Perfect. Okay.
I mean, this one thing we've been talking a lot on this show already. That obviously Biden is on the same track as Trump was, but maybe a much more competent version of what Trump was. And this new executive order is seen in that same light. It's a kind of more enforceable, more clarified system of sanctions. And so one of the things is that actually all these companies with shareholdings in these list of 59 will actually have to divest the existing shareholdings by August 2nd. But we also know that, investments is very difficult to track. When we're looking at, banks like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, BlackRock, they have their hands in many, many pockets. So that actual divestment is going to be very complicated to actually track where they're invested in, how they're going to be able to pull out from these companies. So we have to see what kind of enforcement will actually take place.
Yeah, especially they're worried because, as we know, we also discussed this, I think, a couple of months ago. All of these big Wall Street companies, they are coming to China. China is opening up the finance sector to this company. So they are coming. BlackRock is coming, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan. So they are a bit worried with that because they will be here in Chinese market, but with the sanctions, and actually it's growing the number of companies, this could be a little bit tricky for them how to navigate with that inside China. But this is next chapter.
Right. Yeah. And the main focus. So you were talking about Huawei.
Yeah.
So the sanctions are increasing on them now, or they're pretty much still the status quo that we had before?
It's still the same. What we're trying to bring today is also to understand what was the reactions of Huawei in the last year, because they suffered a lot. They suffered like a major blow. Just for like one example in terms of revenue, Huawei's revenue in 2019 was 123 billion US dollars. It was actually an increase of 19.3% year on year. I mean, last year they didn't do badly. Still, they did like 136 US billion dollars, but the increase was just 3.85%. They were expecting more than 20%. So that was a major blow. And probably next year, they're still struggling a lot. So, but that's why they are trying to do different things. So mostly what Huawei has been trying is to dive into two other aspects. One is software, that they are developing a lot of new softwares, and cloud service. Because the major blow so far to Huawei, as we know, was cell phones. They, in the Q1 last year, they, for the first time, between the Q1 and Q2, for the first time, they became the biggest seller of cell phones in the world. They actually surpassed Samsung. And in two kills in Q4, they became already between the fourth and the fifth. Xiaomi now is selling more cell phones than Huawei in the world. And why is that? because as we know, they are blocked from use Google apps now, Google stores, this kind of thing. So, I mean, if you are outside of China and you want to go for YouTube, you can with a Huawei cell phone. So that was a major blow for them. So one of the big announcements last week was in the video, is this new operational system called Harmony. That's why we are aggravated harmony today. And basically, I'm going to be very brief because, so first of all, this is a new system that they created, a new OS, but it's still based in Android. They still have a base in Android in the cell phones, because remember, Android is actually an open source. It works with a kernel with Linux. So it's actually everybody can use. So Huawei is taking this as a base, and they created something new, some innovation, which is the Harmony. What is the biggest bet of Huawei? Is to create a system that is more compatible, sorry, my poor English, is more compatible with many devices, the internet, so-called Internet of Things. So you have your Harmony system, you can pair, I mean, your TV, your appliances, your drones, your watch. So for instance, Huawei is already doing partnerships with Midea, with DJI, with the Swiss watchmakers Tissot and Swatch. So they are trying to diversify and also create some advantage regarding Apple and all the Android system. But that's not going to be easy. That's not going to be easy at all, because as you know, I mean, Android and iOS, Apple right now is 99% of the market. So if they have to convince other apps, the apps to write an app to them, to their system. And it's not easy. Many big companies already try. Alibaba tried, Microsoft tried, Samsung tried, and they failed. So that's going to be a big challenge for them. How to turn Harmony a really attractable, and Huawei, of course, cell phone, attractable device for the consumers. But they are trying. I mean, this is one of their attempts, not the only one. But I think they have other things in the pocket, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we've been looking at is too how they've been branching into other areas. You know, we've covered a bit in the news on China. One of them is quite interesting, is looking into how they've gone to smart mining, because you know they have to innovate different applications of 5G and expand into other markets. So Huawei's been leading, not just Huawei alone, but a bunch of other tech giants on trying to transform the coal industry, specifically looking at worker safety. You know, mining, not just in China, but in the world, is a very dangerous sector. It's a pretty brutal sector of extraction, right? So one of the really focuses on looking at workers' health in two areas. One is actually just preventing deaths in the workplace, and the other is the kind of effects on health, like the black lung disease as a common, basically it's like the toxic coal dust that affects the lungs. So one thing that in China has actually improved quite a lot in terms of mining deaths, just to give a sense, in the last 10 years, annual work accidents in mines went from 2,433 to 225. So that's basically a huge reduction. I mean, you have a tenth of the deaths. Obviously, you want no worker deaths in the mines. So Huawei is kind of entering in this to think about where we can use 5G technology to basically figure out how to monitor, how to use real-time data so that there's unmanned machinery for the most dangerous parts of mining. You're talking about how to use high-definition cameras and sensors so that you can predict more accurately what the situation of the mines are. Basically, putting less people in the mines in the most dangerous parts. And where Huawei is focusing right now is in Shanxi province, because that's, you know, a third of the country's coal is actually mined there, where there's over 260 billion metric tons of coal deposits. And they're also developing 5G mobile stations, you know, that respond to the conditions. So they're resistant to dust and the dampness in the areas. And even if, you know, you're underground, there's shock waves, there's all kinds of, you know, seismic events that these types of 5G mobile bases has to respond to. So that's one area we've been seeing quite interesting, and obviously highly important for worker safety in the mining sector.
Yeah, I remember seeing a couple months ago a really cool video of somebody actually going in and covering the Huawei tech that's down in the mines. If I can find that video, I'll post it in the description. But they went down and took a look at it. It does seem really, really quite impressive. Yeah, it's actually really good to see Huawei diversifying into these other sectors. They're being pushed into these other sectors, which will be bring great benefits to these other areas. I mean, you imagine a company as capable and big, with as many kind of talented engineers as they have, putting their efforts towards some of these other industries. Because I think you're right, with mobile phones and things like that, it's going to be a tough one to crack. I think, I'm not sure if you mentioned Nokia also. Nokia held onto their system for a long time and didn't evolve with the ecosystem that had all the apps. I think in China, probably they'll be okay, because it's going to be very easy to get the Chinese developers on board to develop for Huawei system. But the overseas ones, in the short term, they'd be developing for the Chinese market. And there's a dilemma also, because for the apps like Twitter or YouTube or things like that, those are useless in China anyway. So it's a really tough nut to crack in terms of bringing Huawei back to prominence overseas. And I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure how they're gonna pull it off. So, anyways, in the meantime, it's good to see them diversifying into these other things.
I mean, just one thing. I mean, we talked a lot about engineers and scientists in the last weeks of the shows. Like in this alone, there's 500,000 engineers working on the Harmony OS itself. So imagine how many more are working in these diversified areas. So
wow,
it's a pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah.
That's amazing. What else? I think you had. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
It's just to mention just two more examples, not going deep into that, but just of diversification. So one is the system for cars, operational system for cars. That's going to be a big deal now. I mean, EV cars, for instance, is like one of the biggest hot trends in the global market. So they are also entering on that. They are pairing with VAIC, the Chinese group, to do all the systems to operate the car. It's actually funny because there was some rumors last year that they were also going to build cars, like hardwares. And then the CEO, Ren Zhengfei, he said, no, we would never build cars. Sorry, guys. But then somebody reminded us, like, okay, Ren, but you know what? In 2012, you said Huawei will never manufacture smartphones. So we don't know. We don't know yet.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, so that's one of the examples. The other one is also fintech. They're also going deep into fintech. I mean, with cloud computing, but also systems, for instance, like even like online meetings. Now the banks, they need like hundreds of meetings online every day. So they are also working on that and I mean, trying to get more clients. But even talking to some friends in tech, say, guys, this takes a few years. They're not gonna solve this for this year, next year. This is like a long-term shot. But I mean, they've been working for how many years? And so let's see.
I mean, the other thing we wanted to bring in, this is the kind of second part of the story, is that we're mapping out a little bit of the domestic responses that Huawei has had to do, but also there's an international response. I don't know if you got the picture, if you can pull that image up, about how countries outside of China responding to these increased U.S. sanctions and pressures that target companies like Huawei. That's right.
Exactly.
So one thing we're seeing, and we published in the last Africa Weekly, which is the supplement we do on Fridays, is that despite the increasing pressure from Washington, we're actually seeing a growing number of African and other developing countries embrace 5G technology. And we published a story because this London-based think tank called Overseas Development Institute actually came out with a study talking about how in response to the U.S. pressures, maybe some global North countries are succumbing to that pressure and are starting to reconsider participating of Huawei and 5G.
Like Canada, UK, Australia.
Sure. Yeah. But what we're seeing is actually many developing countries aren't. We're seeing this in Southeast Asia and Middle East, but hugely so in Africa. So we want to map a little bit about how long Huawei's been in Africa for and what is the landscape. Huawei's been there for about 22 years. And in those 22 years, it now provides 40% of all of the continent's 4G infrastructure. So it's by far the largest telecoms and tech provider on the continent. There's no doubt about it. But it's also a global thing. There's Huawei has 70 contracts with over 41 countries. A third of them are in Africa, so it's the major partner across the global south. And they do a variety of things, providing services and equipment, also a lot of government services, digital services for the government partners. And between Huawei and ZTE, almost 60% of all wireless equipment sales, like all of the wireless equipment sales in Africa and Middle East, are between these two companies. 60%. So it's a huge part of the market. And one thing that we're seeing, and we've been tracing too in this Africa Weekly digest, is that it's the strong arming process, of the U.S. It isn't just the focus of the story. It's actually about the agency and choices of the countries that are saying, okay, we need certain technologies and services. Who do we go to for that?
So when you were talking about that, about infrastructure going into Africa, it made me think of a video from, I think it was about 10 years ago. There was a guy on a panel, a guy from Africa, and everybody else were Westerners. And he was saying in a very, very polite way, he says, because this group was trying to force any dealings with Africa and China through this Western organization still. And he was like, I'm confused. Why do we need to go through the West to deal with China? But then later on, he just very calmly and in a slightly embarrassed way was saying, we've learned that, when we want actual things, when we want actual things that we can see with our eyes and things that are built, we go to China. When we want to have a talk, about different things, we'll come to you, just to have a general conversation. And it seems to be, that's probably why a lot of the propaganda efforts are going into Africa, also American propaganda to demonize the Belt and Road Initiative and things like that. And so obviously there's, with the G7, I don't know if this was a topic you were going to get to. Was that the topic you're going to get to towards the end about the G7's alternative to?
Almost there. We're going to be almost there.
Okay, I'm going to hold that comment then, and I'll let you continue for now.
No, it's just like you made an interesting comment. It's a story about when we want things done, we talk to the Chinese. When we want to talk about, we come to you, Westerners, because one of the things that explain, for instance, what Tings was saying about the huge success of Huawei in Africa. This little people know that, but one of the advantage that Huawei has is not only it's cheap, it's cheaper than Nokia, than Ericsson, it's better technology, but one of the amazing things is the service they provide. First of all, they create special devices for like places with a lot of dust, like a village in the middle of Kenya, where sometimes the base stations are bought by goats in the village. It happens. But guess what? They developed a special device with a material that is resistant.
Goat-proofing.
Goat-proofing material.
Proofing the towers.
Yeah. And guess what? If there's some problem, it's broken. 5,000 people in the middle of Kenya. Guess what? They send people, the engineers, they go there. They stay as many days as they need until they fix the thing. And Huawei pays like a good allowance to them, so they are okay being there. But they do this all the time in the countries of Africa. Can you imagine like a Swedish engineer from Ericsson coming to in the middle of nowhere, Uganda, stay 2 weeks until he fixed a base station that was bought by goat because they don't have a special material? That's not going to happen. So
do you know what the material was to begin with?
It
was like metal or something.
That's a good question.
I'm like, because I'm just picturing these like steel eating goats, and I'm like, man, they got some serious goats. It's like, here's a piece of stainless steel that looks tasty.
Goats are hungry.
Yeah, but no, that is impressive, and I think that is, living in China, the service industry and things like that. When things are broken, people just show up really quickly. Especially. If you compare that to, you're going to know in Canada, your internet's broken or something like that. You make a schedule for 3 or 4 days later, and then somebody from Kojiko or whoever you're using shows up. and maybe they'll fix it, maybe they won't, but yeah.
I mean, it's not quite about Huawei, but I think it's thinking about the same trend with different Chinese companies. One thing we also publish is about Transsion, which is lesser known in China than outside. But Transsion is a cell phone producer. It's a fascinating story. So it only went to the African market in 2007, and within 10 years, it had already surpassed all the other rivals, so Samsung, Nokia, and now is responsible for 44% of the whole mobile market on the continent. So just adding to this, it's not necessarily the goat proofing aspect, but the responsiveness to African consumers and creating products that are really specific to the market. So they've done, many things like, now they've enabled not only 2-chip phones, but 4-chip phones, because many people, do get credit with one mobile provider and then another one, because you can get maybe a little deal and you can have good credit. So it's good to have multiple chip phones. That's a very specific thing in Africa. There's the local, what's it called? Language, what is it called? Keyboards, right? From like Aramaic to Hausa to Swahili, and also the creating extra low price cell phones, in the range of like $35 or something like that. And we've covered stories about electricity. In most of Africa, electricity supply is really uncertain. So you need like long life battery. You can charge once every 3 days. And what's really interesting, and now that you're a little toasted, this would affect you too, is that they've actually created cameras calibrated for darker skin tones, which is something that you couldn't conceive of for other kinds of phones.
Yeah. You know what? I took 2 of my sons with me on the beach, and my eldest, he was roasted now too. Now he's really brown, and his FaceTime, his face unlock on his phone doesn't work anymore. They're like, no. This
not with the Transsion phone. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. They're like, no. This isn't your phone. You're way too dark.
Wow, that's crazy.
There you go.
That's exactly. Yeah. Wow. Well, you need a Transsion phone, man.
You know what? This is this is the chance for Huawei, is to overcome the inconvenience of not having the Google ecosystem on the phone. You have to offer something so amazing that people are willing to put up with an alternate operating system while it's trying to get off of the ground, whether it be these 4 SIM things or all these different solutions. That is their best chance that they've got, or integrating it with all these other TV and devices and things like that. And so it probably makes a lot of sense that that's what they're going to do, because they know that people are going to have to make a compromise if they're not going to be tied into either an Apple or a Google system. So they just got to put out these amazing features or these amazing aspects of the phone that will allow people to make that little sacrifice.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, it's an amazing story. I mean, there's many stories we've been covering. Like, I don't know, in Kenya, they just also approved the 5G. It's Safaricom. Djibouti, they are creating like a whole system connecting the port with 5G. It's amazing things they've been doing in Africa. And anyway, but that's I think that's for Huawei. I think this is the things we wanted to cover. They could take advantage of the Harmony announcement, but it's lots of things behind that.
Right. Yeah. And then you wanted to talk more in general, because I'm actually interested in talking about that as well, about the response, the American kind of G7 thing. Did you want to say something on that first?
Yeah, actually, that's good, because we actually, to be honest, we were saving for the next week. But if you want to cover now, it's perfect. The only thing we could say something before, because it's actually about the new bill that was just approved by Biden, actually right before the G7. So I think it's actually a complementary story. I don't know, but you can also go. I mean, it doesn't hurt.
You go first, because I'm not sure if the bill that you're talking about is the same one that I'm going to talk about as well. So you go first, and then I can just add on top of it.
Yeah, is a $250 billion US they just approved for funding all sorts of technology, development, research, etc.
It has a very Trekkie sounding name.
Yeah, one of the this is actually one of the because there are many bills. There's like 1,400 pages of new laws, and one of the
the Endless Frontier Act.
Yeah, part of the bill who actually is invests $120 billion to invest in AI and quantum computing. That, by the way, China is catching up and surpassing US, and that's the name. But come on, guys, endless frontier. Who has endless frontiers? Empires, right?
Right.
It's unbelievable. All the other countries and normal countries, they have a frontier, but the empire has an endless frontier.
Right. Yeah, I think they need some help on the PR and marketing side. And it's you know what's really interesting though is that all of this stuff is being pushed by China, and this is exactly what I was hoping for. Obviously, still remain a little bit skeptical, but that China engaging countries in a more meaningful way will push America to try to do better, and that's great. I mean, if America can outcompete China, and if they can offer better options to Africa, where we don't want to deal with Huawei anymore, we want to deal with America because you're offering genuine, real, actual, better options, then great. That's great. Obviously they have a $300 million per year propaganda campaign also to demonize China at the same time. So how much will they really rely on being better versus just appearing better on the surface? I don't know, but I'm still hoping there's some good that comes out of it. You know, it reminds me of a tweet I'll bring up from someone here, a friend. He recently, I think it was yesterday, posted this. So he says, let me pull it up. America didn't donate vaccines to the global south out of the goodness of their hearts. America isn't building the new Belt and Road Initiative because it wants new economic opportunities for the world. America isn't funding more space expositions for science. America is doing it because China is doing it. It's China that's pushing them to say, okay, we've got to catch up. We've got to do better. They don't have this monopolistic control over Africa. I think there's still good reason to be skeptical. I mean, it's driven, a lot of the new stuff that they're talking about is driven by corporations, American corporations that don't really always work in the best interests of people or having even something remotely resemble a win-win relationship in many cases. But I hope it does spark something better.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, this is interesting. To be honest, when we were reading this news and doing the headlines, I was thinking about, because you've been saying this in the last months, right? I mean, every time, so okay, that's good. That's two options. So countries, global south, they can, right. Absolutely. And also, I think China is also pushing for something even internally in the US, because at the end of the day, if you think about the last announcements like a month ago or something about the internal investments that Biden announced, like $6 trillion in US economy and welfare state, et cetera, et cetera. Now this one of $250 billion specifically for technology, it's actually there's many analyses about that already. It's representing a sort of a turning point. Looks like, let's see, this is just announcements, but looks like a turning point in the 40 years neoliberalism neoliberal policies in the US. Because actually what is going on right now, the state is coming heavily to invest in the economy, directly in the economy. You're right, it's companies out there, because this is the US right. way, of course, but you didn't have this before. You didn't have, even like some Republicans were a little bit concerned about this last announcements, even this last law. There was a lot of discussions in the last weeks, because some Republicans say, guys, are you crazy? Your state doesn't have money. We can't fund this. This is a private thing. So there's a whole discussion right now in the US about the limitations of neoliberalism. But guess what? Who are they learning from? A country called China, who's been doing this for the last 40 years. I say, of course, the state must be part of the economy, must be a driver of the economy. So they are actually, and you're right, also in this point, because even internally they say, oh, shit, these guys are doing something different. We should actually follow their path. So this is
Yeah, I think
it's a very
yeah,
interesting point.
Hillary Clinton posted something very similar to that also, which is basically advocating for exactly the same system that China has, and saying, "Oh boy, yeah, we should use this."
She was like, "Oh, I know it's going to be expensive, but we have no choice." Yeah,
right.
welcome to the
Yeah.
match again.
I mean, so yeah, internal changes, maybe it will spark something good from the example of China externally in Africa. I think one of the things they need to overcome, and they're lucky that most people have a short memory span, but they have to overcome the fact that America does often break their promises, walk away from their deals, whether it be the Iran nuclear deal or supporting a certain group of people like the Kurds and then walking away from them after, or, countries have learned their lesson that America has the benefit of having a new administration, potentially every 4 years. Am I freezing up or am I still okay?
Nope.
Okay, good. Yeah. Where they can say, okay, well, that was the deal from the last administration. Now we're going to just rip that up and move on. So people have to be really careful about that. If America is successful in displacing China, getting back on top with these promises, with these alternatives, it's something that people need to keep in the back of their minds. But I hope it is a new leaf. I think no matter what they do, everything that they do, they will of course never admit that these are projects that were inspired by China or pushed them into this situation to do that. And on the contrary, what they'll do is they'll find ways to pull the rug out from under their feet here in China as much as they can, with strategically finding an excuse to sanction industries where they want to get ahead in. Or there's a new anti-corruption bill that they're passing, which is meant to target corruption overseas and overseas governments and things like that, which is going to just be another tool of imperialism to find an excuse to say, okay, no, there's some corruption going on there. And I'm almost sure that this new corruption drive will do nothing to focus on corruption in America in terms of lobbying, in terms of politicians working for corporations. I mean, imagine if they put that much effort into actually fixing that problem. That will fix a lot of issues. And to really highlight that this isn't really about any sort of an honest attempt, almost exactly when this bill came out, when this proposal for these new tools that they can use to sanction other countries, they came out with a notice to try to push, let me see if I have it here, to push Korea to release the imprisoned Samsung chip tycoon.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So, and one of the reasons is because there was a $17 billion deal on the table for America that he would be signing off on. But obviously the other thing too is to act as a counterbalance to China. We saw the same thing when they were attacking Japan, a number of decades ago, when they wanted to diversify away from the fact that Japan had so much power and control over chip making. And South Korea was the beneficiary of that campaign then as well. So you got kind of a double deal going on here where, okay, they want to release the Samsung executive so that they can get that $17 billion deal. They can also diversify from China. But more importantly on that story, it shows that this anti-corruption drive that they're doing won't really be deployed in any sort of an honest way. It'll be a strategic tool to target who they want, when they want, for whatever reasons they want.
They actually have already for companies. They've been doing they did it with Alstom, the French one, that they broke the company and actually General Electric just took over. They did this in Brazil. Actually, all the thing called car wash in Brazil is related also to these U.S. laws and how much they harm Petrobras, the oil company of Brazil, with this law. Now they are going to the level of state, but they have already the know-how of how to destroy companies.
I mean, it goes on. I mean, in Syria, they dissolved the Syrian oil company in the rebel controlled areas and took over the Syrian oil, and then immediately after signed a deal with those rebels for that oil. And now American soldiers are there protecting the oil, or as Trump was a little bit more transparent, saying we're taking the oil. So, and that goes back to when you were talking about Biden being a little bit more proficient, or whatever the word is that you used, competent, right? He's competent in being able to not say the quiet bits out loud, the stuff that they're not supposed to say out loud. They can be like, no, we don't actually say what we're really doing here. And that, in many ways, is a much more dangerous. And this is why I was even talking to somebody on the weekend that a lot of people had an appreciation for Trump in the fact that he just took the mask off. He didn't make anything worse than it already was. He just said the quiet bits out loud.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just I mean, one thing, just finishing the topic, is because it's important also to see that, okay, this they have these major investments in technology. Clearly, they are saying this. All the you go to the senators, everybody's saying, no, China is surpassing us. Even Eric Schmidt from Google say, yeah, we're relying too much on the Taiwanese and the Chinese. So, but there's a terrible aspect of this law. There are many articles in this law with measures directly against China. So this is also something also to mention. I don't know.
I mean, it's a huge document. Yeah, so we would be here for another hour to go through all the different kinds of targets. But, there's things like now government agencies can't buy drones from Chinese companies.
Yeah, so no more cool videos with drone, folks. Okay, no cool videos with Chinese drones anymore. Or even like federal employees cannot download TikTok
on just government devices.
On government devices. That's the most important measure, actually.
Okay.
What are you going to do with your break time?
Exactly. So there's also like now they have to provide like so many reports about Chinese influence in international institutions like World Bank, IMF, United Nations, World Trade Organization.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of stuff. There's also the question of allowing diplomats and Taiwanese military to display their flag when they're in the United States to do official business. I mean, this is like really comprehensive of many things. So.
Yeah, and let alone everything related to Xinjiang, Hong Kong. It's there. It's increasing. So it's not going to be easy.
I mean, one thing I think we can end on this note. I mean, it's just like, well, what's China's reaction? I mean, it's a little bit about what you were bringing up, Daniel. Like U.S. reacts to China or reacts just because it wants to counter China. And then China says, well, this bill shows, and this is a quote, the paranoid delusion of the U.S. wanting to be the only winner. And then it also says, we strongly object to the U.S. seeing China as an imaginary enemy. That was the Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Wang Wenbing. So this is kind of paranoid
that's right against. I mean, I think it was Biden who, in his speech, said that he wants America to win the 21st century. Right? Like, what is that? What is that even supposed to mean?
China will never surpass U.S. under my administration.
Whoa. Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's not about let's make everybody's lives better or anything like that. No, we're going to win. Win what? Like they're clearly saying that this is some sort of a competition, and the prize to them is maintaining their global hegemony and their control over the world. But we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot more of this. We're going to see way more companies sanctioned. The new anti-corruption tool will be used as a very low threshold evidence way to sanction more companies, because you see it with the forced labor accusations as well. They don't actually need evidence of it. So unfortunately, it's just going to keep going, and people should keep their eyes open for that. Yeah,
absolutely.
But yeah, I think that was the end of our story, though, right?
Yeah,
our stories. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
good. I think I've got to go and.
Go ahead. No, just quick things. First of all, as to be continued next week, China is already reacting with anti-sanctions law. That's going to be a topic. Okay. Yeah, and it's interesting measures from China. And also just reminding you guys that now we are also on Instagram and Twitter. So it's in the description.
In the description, go give them a follow. Yeah. And I'm going to go nurse my sunburns with some more cream. Starting to peel here. I can feel, absolutely roasted, like all discolored. And nobody's going to, we had that problem where everybody just kept calling me, that white guy in China. I think it's going to be more difficult now. I'm not going to say impossible.
I think it's over. I'm just worried about your phone, because your phone not going to recognize you now.
Yeah, probably. I don't use the facial recognition anyway, but that would be a problem. I gotta get one of those. What is it? The ones that they're exporting over to. Yeah, I need. Yeah, when I go to the shop to buy a new phone, I'll ask for the African version, the 4 SIM card version, just so that it can recognize my face. Okay, guys. So I'm looking forward to the next episode, especially because you're going to talk about the anti-sanction thing. That's a topic I'm really interested in as well. But yeah, so thanks everybody for joining, and we will see you in next week's episode.
Yeah, thank you very much. Bye-bye. See you.